You've spoken about, of course, your relationship with your ex-wife and your divorce publicly in many sort of interviews. And I don't want to touch upon that. But I want to ask you, what do you think, firstly, is there a perfect relationship? And if there is, then what is your definition of a perfect relationship?
Sure, there is a perfect relationship. A perfect relationship is in accepting the fact that it's going to be imperfect. They have to keep working, you know. They say the universe, we are constantly in motion. We are never at the same time in the universe at once. Everything is moving, you know. There's a theory. I think a relationship is like that. It's constantly moving and evolving and changing. And to understand, let's just say the two people who are in that relationship must be willing to sort of move with each other and have that and are willing to negotiate with each other constantly. I think you will create the environment that's necessary to have a fulfilling relationship.
So from your experience, what would you say has not worked what doesn't work in a relationship?
This thing, I think, like people, like when you're not able to make this work, because one person can't make it work, and particularly like, you know, in modern relations with people who live in cities, one person can't make it work, because it's only about because it's not about oh, if you're not married, then what will people say? We're not worried about such things anymore. So if you want a relationship to work, then it has to be that you have to be able to negotiate and talk to each other at all times and make adjustments and solve problems together.
Give and receive feedback as well.
Absolutely, you have to be. And many times our egos get in the way. It's as simple as that. The complications are because our egos get in the way.
Yeah.
And in my case, I think I'm an only child, so I'm not very experienced with being with other people in the house, you know. It was just my dad, mom and myself.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I'm having to share everything with another person. I found that really difficult to handle.
Yeah.
I found that difficult. I felt that I didn't have my space, you know. But I just couldn't figure out how to work around that. And then Kali Roy had her own set of problems. So together also, and also as individuals, we needed to sort of figure out a certain way. And then I say this often, you know, if our relationship was a tree, then a branch was rotten and we had to cut that off. That was the divorce. So we could save the tree. Even if the tree is not fruit bearing, it still gives shade, you know. So that's where we are at right now.
It's still an enriching relationship.
There was a lot of love and, you know, and there was a strong bond that was there. And I always consider her my family, as like, you're my family, you know. It took some time. We needed some time to sort of reset, rethink, realign, and do things on our own for a while to get to a level. And then we are trying to make it work now. That's where we are. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Taking one day at a time, not really thinking about like what will happen in the future. Because we know that things don't work. It's okay. We're mature enough to understand that we'll withdraw and we'll save the friendship. We'll save the tree.
Because that's the thing, right? There's this whole, like, I don't know if it's a misconception or the narrative is that exes can't be friends, which I don't agree with. I think they can.
Absolutely,
even if they choose not to rework or retry, you know, on a relationship, I think they can still be friends because you've loved that person as an individual.
Yes. You need to take some time off sometimes because there's a lot of hurt and pain that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And in that's you have to deal with them, and sometimes you have to grieve the death of the relationship.
Yeah.
If you ask me, it was like somebody died. The end of a relationship, when they say no, heartbreak, how does it feel? It's like when you know that your relationship is over, it's like somebody dying.
It is gut-wrenching.
Yes, it is that pain. It's exactly like that. So you have to grieve the death of that relationship. You have to deal with the pain and hurt. And then you are in a position where you are like, okay, now I don't have any of those things, baggage. I can focus on all the good things that were there between us. All the things that you liked, that were good.
Yeah.
And so then you're able to nurture them also.
How did you deal with that pain?
By taking time, taking time.
And what did you do in that time?
I spent a lot of time just being by myself, focusing on the pain, going through. If it made me cry, I would just cry. Many times. It got in the way of work also sometimes. I had to sometimes cancel a few recordings or dubbings because I just couldn't really get out of bed, you know.
I
Of
really
course,
appreciate.
therapy, like talking to people. I'm not going to like, you know, hype the whole concept of like, you know, having a therapist and counseling and all that, but it's definitely useful. Try and do as much work possible as by yourself. But after a point, I think it's really useful if there are people to guide you
Yeah.
and show you the direction. In my experience, I do a lot of things myself, but when I start talking to a good therapist, they tell you things and I was like, I would have never thought of that.
Yeah. It's a different perspective.
Yeah. Because they're also detached. They're not emotionally attached to you. You know, they're detached. So they look at it from a sense that how can I help this person, and then they tell you stuff. Like I have a thing like, you know, when I get really angry with somebody, when I get really angry, I can say the meanest things. You know, because my ego takes over and it takes the meanest things. And I knew it was the ego, but I didn't know what exactly was triggering it. So while I was talking to a therapist, she said that you hurt back when you're hurt or when you feel hurt. It's not that, it's not important that, you know, the hurt, like whether you're actually hurt or should be hurt or something. You feel hurt by somebody. That creates this, that's the trigger. Something, a behavior they did, they didn't do, or something they said. That's when you hurt back. That's when you can't control and you want to hurt them back 10 times.
Yeah.
Over. By not physically, but just being mean, you know.
Yeah.
And I admit to the fact that I can relentlessly go after somebody sometime for like a long time, just trying to hurt them back because I think they hurt me.
Yeah.